But I want to now bring in Sailesh Rao from Arizona. Anne is talking to us from England. Sailesh, welcome to our program. He is the founder of Climate Healers. And like Anne, he's reflected very deeply about our current situation and has ideas about the imperatives that we need to embrace in order to move forward in a more holistic and healthy way. Sailesh?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Anne, for that beautiful speech. It was a perfect beginning to what I'm going to talk about. I am a scientist and I'm an engineer, and I used to work on the internet back in the days when no one knew what the internet was. But in 2005, I happened to see Al Gore's presentation on TV, and I was so shocked. I said, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time working on engineering. So I started focusing on the environment, and I quit my job and I started doing it full time when I realized how serious the problem is. Within a few years, I was probably one of the most depressed people on the planet because I thought we didn't belong in nature. I was in a forest in the Western Ghats of India in 2009 when the owners of the forest basically told me that they created this out of nothing. They just took a coffee plantation, tore down the fences, and it became this beautiful sanctuary. So I told them, what did you have to do to make this happen? And they said nothing. The animals did everything. They came and dropped their seeds and new trees were born. And so pretty much we had to just give them a space where they felt secure. And then they brought back the forest. So I asked them, how did you make them feel secure? They said, we made them feel secure by patrolling our land and making sure that no human being comes inside. And at that point, I felt very, very small. I felt like I didn't belong on Earth because I was born in that forest, just 200 miles away from where I was standing. So I was depressed. And then I came home, and in 2010, my granddaughter was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area at that time. I came to see her when she was a month old. And I held her in my arms, and she looked up at me and she smiled. And with that smile, I felt this chill go up and down my spine. And I felt as if she was telling me, what do you mean I don't belong? I belong exactly as I am. So go find a story in which I belong exactly as I am. And that's what I set out to do when I came back. I was inspired. I wrote my first book, Carbon Dharma, The Occupation of Butterflies. Dharma is about what is the right thing to do. And it's very easy to figure that out. What is the right thing to do? Well, be compassionate, be kind to all life. Give more than you take from life. Just like the owners of the forest were doing. Okay? Then I realized that they were able to do that because they had enough money in the bank to do that. Whereas the people that they had to keep out of the forest had to make a living. So we have a system, a game of money that we are playing in which we are causing the destruction of the planet. So I started looking at the scientific basis of this new story. What is this new story that we can tell? Because I was raised in the Hindu tradition, and in which I was taught that we are part of God. Every one of us is part of God. And God is working through us in the universe. And at first, when I was working on the environment, I began to disbelieve that. But after my granddaughter looked up at me and smiled, I bought into that. And I said, okay, I have to find a story in which we belong exactly as we are, and God is working through us to create whatever it is that He wanted to create. So I knew what we had to do, but I didn't know how we were going to go about doing it. And for that, we had to tell a story about what were we doing all along. And that story had to be based on science. So I took the next 6 years researching the science of climate change, the science of biodiversity loss, understanding where things are and how we got here, and what could be a plausible explanation for what were we doing all along. Because if God is working through us, God has been working through us all along, not just now. So then I discovered the hypothesis of the thermostat species. Because something fundamental happened in this interglacial period. The Earth has gone through over 100 ice ages and interglacial periods over the last 3 years. And in the process, she created us as a species. And 50,000 years ago, in the previous ice age, we spread out from Africa and went throughout the world. And we are a very adaptive species. See, we were born a prey species, and then we mastered fire, and we became a predator species. And then we spread throughout the world, and then we started agriculture in the current interglacial period. And something magical happened when we started agriculture. We cut down forests. And when we cut down forests, we kept the temperature constant for 10,000 years. We kept the temperature constant, and we prevented the Earth from going back to another ice age 6,000 years ago. And then over the last 200 years, we have created all the tools and technologies we need to understand what we did and now become a conscious thermostat species, a conscious caregiver species. Just like we transitioned or transformed from a prey species to a predator species, now we have the opportunity to transform from a predator species to a caregiver species. So I believe that we are in the midst of the greatest transformation in human history. And I have a slide I'm going to show. I'm going to share with you about this. And in this, the greatest transformation in human history, this is like the discovery of fire. So the choice that Anne put before us is either we go extinct or we transform. We will go extinct if we stay with the system of normalized violence that we are living in today. There's no question that we will go extinct. But if we fashion a system of normalized nonviolence or normal nonviolence, because nonviolence is normal for us, then we can thrive. So from a prey species to a predator species, now we have to become a caregiver species. We call ourselves Homo sapiens sapiens today. Sapiens means wise. And we call ourselves wise twice. Have you ever really met a truly wise person who goes around saying, I'm wise, and that too twice? Wisdom always comes with humility. So when we advertise that we are wise, we are actually buying into the narcissism. We are buying into this deep insecurity that we feel that we don't really belong on Earth. So from that, we have to transform ourselves to Homo ahimsa. Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word that means nonviolent. So going from a purely Latin designation for us, I'm suggesting that we combine Latin and Sanskrit to call ourselves by our character, not our characteristics. And this transformation requires 7 core shifts. The 7 core shifts are from speciesism, colonialism, racism, ableism, and patriarchy to veganism and radical equality. Why do I highlight veganism there? I highlight veganism because veganism is the idea that we can live without deliberately hurting innocent animals unnecessarily. And whenever I ask anyone, would you deliberately hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily? They've always said no. So which means that compassion or veganism is at the core of our being. That's who we really are. When we consume animal products, we are fundamentally speciesist because we are telling the animals that they are worth less than us. Because even though they are unnecessary for us to consume, we are going to consume them anyway. It promotes colonialism. For producing animal foods, we are destroying forests in the Amazon today. When we destroy forests in the Amazon, we have to displace indigenous cultures. We have to tell them that they are inferior to our culture. That is colonialism 101. When we consume animal foods, we are promoting racism. Because if you look at who is working in these slaughterhouses, who is working in these factory farms, you will see people of color. You notice where they situate these slaughterhouses and factory farms, they're situated near people of color. Because we want the pollution to go to them, not to us, not to the privileged classes. So there is racism built into the consumption of animal foods. There is ableism built into the consumption of animal foods. Because if you look at the workers in these factory farms or slaughterhouses, they get injuries that disable them. And as soon as they get those injuries that disable them, they are kicked out because they're usually undocumented immigrants and they cannot complain when they're kicked out. And if you look at what we do to the animals to get their, to use their flesh and their secretions for our food, it is the outright abuse of the feminine. So there is patriarchy built in. And we expect our workers to go and abuse the feminine in the slaughterhouses and then come back home and be nice to their wives and to their children. How is that even possible? So you will see incidences of sexism, of sexual abuse increase in these communities. So this is why I say it is from all of these isms to veganism and radical equality. Radical equality in which we actually do treat everyone as equal, not just pretend to do that. And it is from diseases and divisions for humanity to health and unity for humanity. So as you can imagine, this is a total transformation of our system. So currently we make money out of the diseases that we give to human beings. We make them eat food that makes them deliberately sick. And then we treat them in hospitals. So chronic diseases are the cash cows of the pharmaceutical industry. We divide people by race, by color, and then we make them fight each other. We have wars. We have wars against each other through nations. From that, we have to have a system that automatically has health and unity for humanity. Currently, we make money out of destroying and polluting the planet. So from destruction and pollution of the planet, we need to have a system in which we automatically remediate and regenerate the planet. From death and cruelty to animals, to love and kindness for animals. That should be normal in our daily actions. From a culture of consumption, which is really a culture of slavery. If you are tied to your consumption, you are enslaved by that consumption. From a culture of consumption to a culture of compassion. Culture of compassion, compassion is about freedom. It's about liberation. From a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. Currently, we think that we are in a scarce world, but in reality, we are extracting 6 times as much food as we really need because we are feeding 5 of that to our animals. And they give a small pittance from that food that we are feeding them. So we are creating an artificial scarcity because we are living in a mindset of scarcity. From a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. And everything that we show on the left-hand side of this transformation is driven by the money system that we have created. It's a money-driven economy that does this to us. And it is the game of money that we are playing. The rules of the game causes us to behave this way. So from that, we have to create a new game in which we automatically serve others. And that is what is rewarding in the new system. So we have to create a new game in which we lead our ordinary lives and we automatically do everything on the right-hand side of this transformation. And we are working on such a game. It's called the game of Aquarius. I will not go into details on that, but thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you. And thank you so much for inviting me to this forum.